Hey there, my name is Piotr, and it's Cut to Reveal podcast. I'm here with my co-host Ricky. Oh, sorry.
Okay, we're doing it real short.
I thought you would sense it and say, and I'm Ricky. Welcome to Cut to Reveal podcast. My name is Piotr.
And I am Ricky, and we're here discussing the editing art form and all the hurdles that come with that career path.
This is the 5th episode, and this time we're gonna talk about what makes us more productive during editing sessions. So it will be about efficiency and about productivity. And at the end of it, we'll also talk about the course that actually brought us together, because Ricky is a student in the Editing Chef course. And this
Correct.
is how we met. This is how we get to know each other. And this is how we get to start this podcast together. So it will be fun.
That's right. And so hopefully at the end of this, you'll learn a little bit of at least 3 tactics and concepts that will increase your efficiency and allow you to manage your work better. And especially if you're a freelance editor, that always helps.
Exactly, especially for freelance editors, because in my opinion, once you have to manage your own time, productivity and efficiency really becomes a challenge. I mean, I know that, all of these skills that we're going to talk about are useful for someone who works from, 9 to 5 as well. Mm-hmm. But once I transitioned to freelance editing instead of working in the post-production house, I know that all of these struggles became more real to me in a way. So that's what we're going to address today. It will work for all of the people working in post-production, but especially for those that are freelancers.
Oh, for sure. I had the same thing once I stopped working at a production house and started having to be responsible for my own time. Yeah, that's kind of a crux of a lot of people that work from home, I think.
Definitely.
So, before we start, did you want to talk about anything that's happening on Cut to the Point, your YouTube channel?
In a week, I'm publishing a new video about 3 pillars of successful editing career in a way. So what are the most important skills for editors to learn? Quite often, editors, especially at the beginning, they focus solely on technical side of things, how to run software and, watching a lot of tutorials. And that's what I started Cut to the Point with. But eventually, you want to learn and focus on different skills. So that's what this video is going to be about. That's coming out in a week. Great.
Can't wait to see it.
Good. Okay, let's dig in. Let's cut to the meat.
Let's get into it.
So the first concept we're going to talk about is dealing with distractions, because we deal with them all the time, especially once we have to manage our own projects, our own clients. And what I want you to think about is, what is the opposite of distraction?
I would say focus, but it might just be in the word. So if it's distraction, then it probably is traction?
Exactly, it's traction. It's staying on track. Because, things like checking Instagram or, chatting with your friend via social media aren't bad things by default. These are the things that are necessary to some extent to, maintain contact with your friends and things like that. But they become distractions where they happen when they are not intended. So that's the difference. Okay. I think the biggest lesson that I've learned, and to be honest, I'm quite guilty of not following that rule quite a lot, because this year has been quite crazy for me and I haven't really been scheduling my sessions, at least not as well as I used to do it a year ago. And now I have to kind of get back to it. But what you want to do is actually schedule your day. And not only the task that you need to do, not only a to-do list. And even once you have a to-do list, you have to translate it to your calendar. So put every task in its own place on the calendar, in its own time block, And what is crucial is actually scheduling not only the work-related stuff, but also things that you have to do, you want to do, but that are not work-related. So, for example, if you want to have that time for social media, put it in the calendar. And once it's in the calendar, once it's planned for, it's not a distraction anymore, because you're taking a specific time to do these things, to check social media and things like that. And then it becomes like just part of your day.
Right.
That's the biggest lesson that I want you to leave you with.
Right. It's an accountability thing. Obviously, with the distraction and traction is, like you said, to keep you on task, and being able to visualize those things regardless of what they are within the map of your day. I think that it helps you mentally to like see that map and to know that it's a little bit more attainable also.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a freelancer or whatever, you're going to have a list of things that you need to do, regardless of if it's for the job or not. As you're going through the day, it's kind of like you're making that progress anyway, and it makes you feel accomplished. So it's kind of, it also helps like mentally.
Yeah, I think
which I think is great.
The biggest mistake people do is just like they translate to-do list into the calendar and not leaving themselves like breaks and actually that time for like recharging batteries, especially taking the breaks to have a short walk or just to, you know, go downstairs, like do some push-ups and things like that are essential.
Depending on how I'm doing on a certain project, and if I need to focus, I'll set a timer for exactly 2 hours, which kind of is more, for whatever reason in my mind, that makes it more real. Like, okay, I have to do this before the bell rings. And then after that, maybe I'll say to myself, okay, after this 2 hours, then I can take a break, maybe get up, walk around, get something to eat, then come back, set another 2 hours. And that helps me focus on the task at hand. Nobody's impervious to distractions, no matter what it is. So, especially when you're by yourself and you're like, well, I love working on this, but hey, look at this shiny thing over here. What's happening on Instagram? So
yeah, or check the email, right? Maybe someone has sent me a message, and then the cycle starts. The cycle of checking things up. And I also want to add one more thing to that, because there are like many techniques of setting timer for yourself, like Pomodoro Technique is probably something you heard of. But I think the important thing to know here is that it depends on the person. So for someone, that Pomodoro Technique with 25 minutes of work, 5 minutes of break will work. For some people, it will not. For me, like 5 minutes of break is not enough, and I gravitate more towards having a longer working session and a longer break between working sessions. So I think I'm more like leaning towards what you're doing right now. I think the takeaway here is just to test it on yourself, like, you know, listen to your body and what it tells, and figure out what works for you. And schedule a calendar, use that traction concept in a way that works for you. So I hate to say that it depends on the person, but it does. And there is no other like ready-to-go solution for everyone.
No, I mean, these are just concepts that we're talking about that we know because we've utilized them and they work for us. So obviously we're coming from a place of experience. There's really no wrong way to do it. It's just like these are the tools that you can use.
Shall we cut to the second concept?
Yes.
Let's do it. In my opinion, there are three main categories of things that make you more productive, more efficient. The first one is like prep work, and that's what we just talked about. Like things you do actually before you even start.
Okay.
Things you do to prepare yourself, your work environment, your workstation. And then the next category are things that you do to kind of get into the zone. And then the third category are things that you do once you're in the zone to make the process efficient. Okay. So now we're going to talk about the second pillar, which is like getting through that first initial stage, getting into the zone, getting into the flow of editing. And the concept I want to talk about, I call it the Hemingway Rule. The reason behind it is because I've learned reading about Hemingway that he used to do something very interesting. He used to write books and stop only when he knew what the next paragraph would be about. And it felt so contrary with what I used to do. So for example, when I was working on adding B-roll to my timeline, right? I liked to add all of the B-roll clips I thought were needed before I could call it a day. But Hemingway or his writing method suggests something else. That you should actually stop once you know what will follow. What is the next step? What is the next thing you're gonna do on the timeline? What I do these days is I tend to end my session once I have like 90% of B-roll added on the timeline. And then the last few minutes of my working day, I will just finish with doing the next step. So for example, the next step would be working with music, adding the music track to the timeline. And I will just drop it on the timeline, start figuring things out, how it will go, how it will play with the edit, and then call it a day. Once I have like a rough idea what song I'm gonna use, how it's gonna transition to another one, and things like that. And because of that, the next day, I have very easy 10 minutes of work on finishing up a B-roll. Something that is not requiring me to do much thinking, to be honest, but that warms me up in a way.
Okay.
Yeah. So it applies to other stages of editing as well. Let's say you're like watching dailies. You could end with 15 minutes of dailies that are unwatched by you. You haven't watched them yet. And cut to another stage, like thinking about the story the shots will tell and basically working on a rough cut.
Okay.
And once you have a very rough idea how things gonna play out, then you call it a day. And next time you sit and you want to work on that project, you have very easy 15 minutes where you're just watching the rest of the dailies. And the added benefit to it is that once you work on that next stage, you subconsciously think about what you're gonna do with it, you know? So you take a break and your mind subconsciously gives you ideas about how the rough cut could work, and either it should work as what's scripted, or maybe you should change things in it. But the main thing is that the next time you start that editing session, you have those 15 minutes that are quite easy. You know what to do already, and you don't have to start with something that is difficult.
Okay, great. I have nothing to add to that.
Good. Ricky will have hard time cutting that episode. I can tell already.
My last handful of jobs have been pretty, the deadlines have been really quick. Yeah. And there's just been an overwhelming amount of work that I didn't have the space to be like, all right, I can leave some till later. Like I had to crank through everything.
So I want to suggest that you actually still do apply it. Because it's not like you have to do it for every step or for every like stage of editing. That's something you just like, once you want to call it a day, once you want to take a longer break, then you identify what is the next stage, what will be the next thing you'll have to do. And instead of finishing that part that you're doing right now, you're starting working on the next one.
Yeah.
So that's what applies to those situations where you are under the tight deadline and you're not really doing like one section at a time, because that's what we rarely do. We usually do like a few stages of editing in one day, or even before we take a break. But you can apply it to those situations as well. You just identify what will be the next stage. What is the next thing I'm gonna work on? What will be the next scene, for example, I will cut. And then instead of cutting that scene I'm working on to perfection, you switch to the next one, just for a few minutes, just to get a sense of what's gonna work in it, and to give yourself that easy start of, you know, polishing the scene you have worked on once you start your next editing session.
Yeah.
Does it make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I guess thinking back to those jobs, I kind of would do that. And it was more like, okay, I'm trying to get the timing right, even if the B-roll isn't perfect. And then I could go back, start working on something else. And then when I went back to it, then I could watch it all over again and tighten it up.
Yeah, many people, I think, do it subconsciously as well.
Yeah.
In a way. But I think like once you plan for it, it's also like, it's more beneficial in a way. Just, you know, just doing it on purpose. For me, the hardest part when I'm getting to edit something that just doesn't feel something like I have to do right now is just starting.
Oh, right.
Yeah. I don't know if you have it, but sometimes I do.
I know exactly
Yeah, even for projects that are that are cool projects that I would still like say, oh, I'm really appreciating this project, but still sometimes like getting to edit is the hardest part, and that's what the Hemingway rule is for, because you want to give yourself that easy start, that head start to begin with,
Like that warm-up you were talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
Theoretically, you should be in the zone by then, so then it's just the momentum of working.
Exactly. I mean, as always, it's the matter of practice. So the more you do it, the easier it becomes. But I would say that both scheduling and Hemingway rules are something that I try to do, but scheduling and using that traction concept has been always for me more difficult to kind of like incorporate into my working routine. But Hemingway rule is something like, it's so easy to do it, it doesn't require a lot of like planning and things like that. You don't have to reevaluate anything, because with traction you have to reevaluate. Did I do well with what I planned for? Or did I not? With Hemingway rule, it's just something you do once every day, by the end of your day or by the end of your working session, and it's so easy to implement. So I would say that from all the concepts that I've learned throughout the years of editing as a freelancer, the Hemingway rule is probably the easiest one to implement, and also the one that gives me the most bang for the buck in a way.
Right, because you can see the results of it quicker.
Yeah,
perhaps.
Definitely.
And you can feel it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of what we had talked about before or what I had mentioned before in regards to accountability and kind of having control of what's going on, because it's so easy. At least I always experience a little bit of anxiety when I'm working on new projects, and especially if I'm working on projects one on top of the other, 2 different jobs at the same time, which is a terrible thing to do. But it can, at least in your mind, it can easily get away from you. And to have something where you're seeing it, like the Hemingway rule, that you can implement it immediately and then see the results of it or feel the results of it, it kind of helps you eases your mind with the task at hand. So yeah. So the third tactic or concept that we're going to talk about is keyboard shortcuts, which if you're a video editor or anybody that works with computers, you should already be using.
They obviously make you more efficient. Like everyone knows it.
The keyboard shortcuts that I use a lot are Control R for adjusting the speed and stuff, and then G for gain, Option Command V. It's easier just to use that to copy effects to another clip. Command K and Command L. Command K is the knife to cut, and then Command L basically splits audio and video apart. And I use those all the time. We'll say that's my game when I'm editing. Yeah.
For specific projects, there are things that you do regularly, that you do often, and then you actually want to create your own shortcuts sometimes for those specific tasks, or maybe even macro sequence. So that will like run a few shortcuts at a time with one click of a button. These are all things that are like easy to do. So why wouldn't we implement them in the editing workflow?
For sure.
There are a few that I think are essential for probably like every workflow. So you've mentioned the one Ctrl+K, which adds an edit point at a place where your playhead is. I actually have it mapped to D on my keyboard, because I like to have my hand in kind of like a game and play position where, when you're gaming or something like that, you're using like that WSASD keys. But I like to hold my hand on Q and W, which are shortcuts for trimming the head and tail of a clip, which I use all the time. And once I have these fingers, these two, on Q and W, it's just so natural to have this one under D, So D and F. So I use D for adding the edit point and F for ripple delete. And with the combination of Q, W, D, and F, which I have all under my fingertips, basically, it's so easy to do any rough cut. Like anything that doesn't involve like many tracks that are related to each other, it's so easy to do with just those 4 shortcuts, and I just have them in the place where I don't even have to change position of my hand in a way, or use my other hand to activate the shortcut, So I think that's super useful. You also mentioned the shortcut for linking and unlinking, which is Ctrl+L, which I use quite often as well. But there is also this timeline button. It's called linked selection in Premiere Pro. Even though I'm giving these examples on Premiere Pro, all of these shortcuts are applicable in all major NLEs. In Resolve, in Final Cut, they are not limited to Premiere Pro specifically. But in Premiere, you have this button, which is linked selection, which you can also create a shortcut for. So you probably know shortcut S, which activates and disactivates snapping on the timeline. So, when you drag a clip on the timeline, it snaps to something that's already there. You can deactivate it with S shortcut. A button that is next to that magnet button in the timeline panel, one of them is linked selection, which is basically, once you click on a clip, do you want only the clip that you click on to be selected? Or do you want every clip that is linked to that clip to be selected as well? So when you have audio and video that are linked, with linked selection activated, once you click on video, it will select both audio and video. But if you have it deactivated, it will just select video clip. I have it under the Z shortcut, which is also quite handy. Also under my fingertips, I don't have to move my hand around to activate it or deactivate it. So that's quite useful, I think. These are the tactics that I want you to try in your workflow today, because all of them are applicable. And I think that the most difficult one and the one that will require the most work is probably creating that schedule every day, that traction for your working sessions, for your editing sessions. But Hemingway Rule and shortcuts are the things that you can implement in the workflow right away. Yeah. So I encourage you to do it.
And quicken your game.
Yeah.
Immediately.
Yeah, exactly.
So Peter, when's the next session and what's different about this session compared to the previous Editing Chef?
Yeah, so it starts on December 6th. And this time, actually, the launch period will be 9 days long. So I'm closing the enrollment on December 15th. It will be open to some extent after that launch period, but under a little bit worse conditions. So I would still argue that it's best to sign up during that 9 days window, And there will be 2 options to choose from. The first one will be just video lessons and the Discord community, for those people that do not want to get involved in live sessions, because some people just do not care about this stuff. But I think the most beneficial, and I have no doubt about it, the most beneficial option is to choose the one with live sessions. This time, live sessions will be topic-based, which basically means that each live session will summarize, and we will do exercises together from 1 or 2 chapters from the Editing Chef. So it's still self-paced course, but I think the best way to get most out of it is to attend these live sessions, do the exercises together, and December 6th.
Perfect. All right. Well, great.
Yeah, if you want to sign up, if you want to learn more about it, if you're not really convinced but you want to learn more, go to cuttothepoint.com/TEC. Again, I said it many times on the channel already, so I'll say it here again, even though I'm talking about my course this time. None of the courses is for everyone, So you have to check the website, you have to read about it, you have to basically decide if that's something that works for you. If you feel it does, then check it out. If not, then it's okay. It's okay.
Well, that's it, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and you should check out the Editing Chef because, in my opinion, I think it's worth it.
Yeah, to be honest, Ricky, it does make me feel like an imposter because seeing your edits, I know that you are a great editor, and having someone like you in the Editing Chef course is like a biggest compliment to me. And, all the people in the Editing Chef, especially those that I get to know personally during the live sessions, are just so cool. So cool. I learned from you guys as well, which is awesome.
I appreciate that. Thanks for saying that.
Okay. Have a good one, everyone. Okay. Till the next time.
Have a good day. Edit like there is no tomorrow.
Shoot and edit like there is no tomorrow. Ricky has to learn the phrase.
Yeah. Goodbye, everybody. Have a great day.
Bye. Thanks for taking time out of your busy day.
If you like what you've heard, please rate, review, and subscribe on whatever podcast platform you listen to this on. Your reviews help more people discover this show. You can also follow us on Instagram. Just search for @CutToReveal and tell your friends.
And if you have any questions or comments, send them to podcast@cuttothepoint.com, and who knows, maybe we'll use them in the future episodes. And as we say around here, until the next time, shoot and edit like there is no tomorrow.